Hello out there, and in front of you today is the Kershaw mixtape, and this is a budget knife from last year that I got in a trade with a buddy of mine on Instagram, and I really only went for it because I really like the look of the knife, sure, but I was just curious as to see like what they did with this model and how it was, because I knew it was a pretty cheap one, right around the $20 price point, 8CR 13 MOV. I think, I'm trying to remember the name of the model, but I think it reminded me of the Arcform Slimfoot is the one, just a sort of utilitarian kind of blade, and yeah, I wanted to see how it would be, and it was really impressive at first. Just pretty good action. Pretty just like simple and basic, but a good kind of user budget cheap knife that would be very serviceable. And then I found the fatal flaw with it, and I can't really too much blame the model across the board because this knife was used when it came to me, so I don't know what could have happened in its travels before it reached me. But this liner lock is disengaging in a way that it really shouldn't be, in a way that is almost unsafe. So let's take a look at a liner lock and just go over the basics of how this could happen and how it works. So obviously we have a liner inside the frame in the scales, and when the knife opens, it engages, locking the knife up. Lockup on this knife is excellent. It's very good. Now, one thing that happens with other liner locks, and I'll bring in a couple of those. Here is another Kershaw, another new Kershaw. I think this is the airframe. This is on loan from Big Red EDC, so thanks to Big Red, more videos on this model coming soon. But the only way to disengage this knife is you got to give it a nice push over to the side. If there's any up and down kind of exertion, that liner is staying put. You know, so when you have the knife in your hand and you're pushing down, that liner is not going to disengage. That's what you want. You know, another example of it. The CRKT Pete here, same thing. So we have this liner. It's strongly engaged. The lockup is good. If you push straight down on it, it's not moving. It's just confirming that it's where it should be. The problem with this guy is that it does not behave that way. So obviously you can see moving it to the side, it's going to disengage, but also if you just push straight down, it has this tendency to slide over. Even if you're just doing regular like up and down kind of pressure. So what that means is, and I can't do it every time, and I don't intentionally try to do it, but if I have the knife and I'm pushing down and holding it down, I can close the knife way too easy. So if you're using this in cutting, you know, might be a little bit of an issue. And for me especially, you know, I can do it right-handed and left-handed, but for me especially left-handed, with just the way that the force comes from, you know, the inside of the fingers comes this way, you know, it's really easy to do that. Now obviously, like, if you want to be intentional with it, you know, in this position, yeah, I can close a knife like this on purpose, but it shouldn't be something that happens accidentally. So I'm trying to figure out how can I save this knife, you know, not really trying to give an indictment of the whole model. I'm not really worried about that at this point, you know. I'm trying to save this knife, and the only thing I can think of to do is disassemble it, take the liner out, and sort of Dremel down all this exposed part so that when I'm holding the knife, I'm not pushing that down. So, and it just disengaged like that. I mean, that's, you know, that's really not good. And you can see when you push straight down, it tends to just slide over to the left. It's not what you want. But anyway, so my only idea here is to take this thing apart and just shave some of this down so that basically when you're holding it in your hand and you've got that grip, it's not going to be pushing on the liner to the extent that it will disengage it. So let's see what happens with that, and let's see what we can do here. Alright, so here is the mixtape disassembled, and pretty simple, basic kind of construction. We do have 2 sets of washers, and this second like plastic set is very, very thin. So Teflon, I mean, I guess it gives it a nice little snap. So that's a good thing. And then in oddity is just the way that this clip works. I'll insert a picture of the clip and the way that it looks when it's installed, because yeah, this actually goes in through the inside and then loops out through the scale. So yeah, interesting clip. But what we have here is the liner, and so the goal here is going to be just to take down this groove and push it further back, basically push it further down to keep it from getting in the way as much, and to keep my my thumb from accidentally disengaging it. Now that said, we do have a D10 pawl right here, so we aren't working with all that much room. So I'll be as careful as I can. It's one of those things where, I mean, the knife is not something that I'm confident in using just because of this issue. So if I screw it up, I mean, it's screwed up anyway. So so I just got to give it a shot and see what happens. So here we are, and I think I've gotten this to the point where if there is going to be any improvement, I'll be able to see it. So this isn't like the cleanest or nicest job. You know, what I did was I just took the frame, the lock bar down a little bit. Obviously, I didn't mess with the engagement area at all, just this area right here, so we still should be good. Tried to provide a little bit of like chamfering, if that's what you want to call it, in order to be able to dig my thumb in there, depending on how deep it is. But I really won't know until I get the knife back together. So I'm going to do that, and we'll see where we are and see if there is a fix, or if this is just going to be an SOL kind of situation. As it stands right now, the knife is actually a little bit better. It's definitely not better all the way to the point where the issue is resolved, but it's better, and I can see that potentially if I were to continue taking this down, that I might be able to completely take care of any hesitancy that I have to carry the knife and use it, just because of the potential. See, see, it's just way too easy to do that, you know. And when you have your hand on the knife, you can't guarantee that you're pushing down in the same direction all the time, you know. And so any kind of like movement, cut this way or that, and the thing just might pop. And yeah, it's not going to be every time, but it's something that, I mean, look at that. There you go. So yeah. So I mean, I think if we really want to see if it's possible to fix this, then I've got to get drastic, and I mean, I've got to go as far down as I possibly can, and screw it. Let's do that real quick and see what happens. Final verdict on this Kershaw mixtape here, and you can see how far down I've taken this liner, and just tried to hide it from where my finger will be sitting when the knife is in use. And I mean, that worked. It worked to an extent that the knife is much safer to, I mean, a pretty significant degree than it was a while ago. But that said, there's still that hesitancy that I talked about. There's still that uncertainty that, I mean, this could definitely still happen. You know, if you're working with this knife and digging in, I mean, I can feel the flex, and I can feel just the lack of a resolute lockup, I guess. Even though it feels sturdy like this, I mean, as soon as you get that knife, I mean, it's just too easy to move that and to compromise that lock bar. And so, yeah, I don't think this is a knife that I'll be able to use anymore. And really wasn't able to use it much at all. I mean, I figured out that this was a problem while I was using it, and it just popped a little bit. So obviously, I don't want to push my luck with that. What I will ask you guys, though, is do you have any experience with this model? Is this something that, you know, I just inherited because I got a bad one, or is it something that you might have seen or seen anything else like this. Here's a shot of that clip. It is a pretty interesting clip, and again, it's a shame because the design is one that really does lend itself to being very serviceable, just being a good kind of beat up EDC, but you can't have a beater EDC if you're not comfortable beating on it. And that's the situation that we're in with this guy. So, all right, guys, let me know your thoughts. Any questions, comments, complaints, suggestions, let me know. I will talk with you soon. Take care and have a good one.